Welcome to Good Books Radio. I'm Lupita Strong, sitting in as guest host for Dr. W.F. Strong. Our book today is The Girl, A Life in the Shadow of Roman Polanski. When the book first arrived, I said, no way you're doing this interview. I'm doing this interview. When I heard that Samantha Geimer, the girl in the Roman Polanski case, was publishing a book, I just knew I would be reading it. All my life, and I think the audience can relate, I have known about the famed director of Rosemary's Baby and The Pianist, about his arrest for rape, and about him fleeing the country to avoid final sentencing. But I'd never really thought about the girl behind the story. What was she like? Every time Polanski is mentioned, in effect, Samantha Geimer is mentioned as well. As she puts it, everyone had told her story, except her. Now, with the release of The Girl, A Life in the Shadow of Roman Polanski, Samantha takes back control of her own story. Time magazine calls her book at once a tabloidy page-turner and a thoughtful memoir. And today, we talk to Larry Silver, her longtime lawyer and her trusted friend. Good morning, Mr. Silver. My first question to you is, how would you respond to the people who think that Roman Polanski got away with rape, in light of the fact that you have been trying to settle it all with probation?
Well, first of all, there's no question that Polanski admitted to a felony. It was a felony involving unlawful sexual intercourse. Needless to say, it has affected him in significant ways in his life. He's obviously a movie producer in the United States, is the central place for the way and place where this all happens, and he can't come here.
Yes.
But the goal of the family at the time was never to have Polanski incarcerated. It was an alternative arrangement. The concern that they had was that at the outset, Polanski's lawyers denied that anything had occurred, basically saying that Samantha, my client, had made the whole thing up.
Yes.
The guilty plea obviously was in contradistinction to that. He admitted, of course, that he had done all the things from which he was accused. So if people wanted blood, if people wanted him to spend a long time in jail, that was neither the goal of my client nor we thought getting away with it if he didn't do that.
Right. And you were hired right away after the rape, I believe, in 1977. And I think she does a wonderful job in the book of explaining, the mood of the 70s, explaining the backdrop, showing what her life was before and after, right? And she says that she was very resentful of your presence there initially.
She clearly was. I've told her any number of times that I've never had a client who has disliked me as much as she has. And actually, quite understandably, she was a 13-year-old child who really did not want to relive again and again what had happened, and was both frightened and angry that it had happened and that it was happening every time she was asked by either the grand jury or the district attorney to retell the story. Yes. And I was very clear, in fact, I think she says in the book, from the original day until today, I've never asked her what happened at Jack Nicholson's house, other than the fact that sex happened.
Yes.
Because that's all I really needed to know to represent her.
Yes, she does say that. And what about the Judge Rittenband? I don't think people know the extent of his, his impropriety of how he was a publicity hound, everything that he did. Did people know that at the time?
Well, first of all, I had appeared many times before Judge Rittenband, before I represented Samantha, before this event occurred. And he was a great judge, not a good judge, a great judge. I mean, he was fair, he was smart, he was hardworking, he was creative, and I always look forward to appearing before him in these cases. And I think the general view was that he was a great judge, except when there was a celebrity case where there was a lot of publicity and, the matter was in the media or in the newspapers, he really became a different person. I have never heard of a judge holding a press conference, much less two. I've never heard of a judge consulting with press people as to how different results that he might achieve in the courtroom would play in the press.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that was even more astounding than all of that is he was very open about it. He posed for pictures in the press conference.
Yes, I think in the book at some point it says it's almost like he was showing off that he had this power, this connection with the press. And there's a great line in the book that says, when the press was not happy, and when the press was unhappy, so was Rittenband.
Well, that's for sure.
Yes. Okay, and then he was also very open about, Samantha describes very often in the book how a lot of people, criticized her and her mother, and even the judge said a line about, what is this, a mother-daughter hooker team?
Right in open court, which was astounding for the judge to take that position. Samantha and primarily her mother at the time was criticized, and for allowing Samantha to go alone on the movie shoot.
Yes.
But in fact, she did not. The mom asked to go along. Polanski said no, but a girlfriend of Samantha's was supposed to go along.
Mm-hmm.
And right outside, right before they got to the car, Polanski said, we're going to be coming back very late. And the girlfriend said, well, I can't come back that late. He said, well, we're going to. And then she said, well, then I guess I can't go.
Mm-hmm.
And so she left. When that happened, she left and went home. The mother didn't know that the two of them were alone. She always thought that Terry was with them. But more importantly, I think her mother is a very trusting person. And although I don't think she even considered this as a possibility, in reflection, she said, it never occurred to me that someone so well known and so famous would do something so evil that they would adversely that they would suffer the adversity from and the consequence of doing something such as this and getting caught.
Right. Yes. And how long did it take between the time when he was arrested and the time when the plea agreement was reached?
Several months.
Several months. And I think I read in the book that once the judge started kind of deciding that maybe probation would make him look, like he was being very easy on the sentencing, he changed his mind. And what did he suggest at that point?
Well, the first thing he did, which was a difference than what everybody had agreed to, was he said, well, I'm going to send him to prison for a psychiatric interview to determine whether he is psychiatrically sound. California law is very clear that though you're going to prison, you're not going to prison as part of a sentence, you're going to prison as for an examination which happens to be conducted in a prison. And that's not a sentence and it's not punishment. And so he changed things at first, and I guess Polanski's lawyer wasn't happy with this, but agreed to it. And then he was going to sentence him to time served, which was time that he had spent in the prison.
Which I think was 42 days? Yes,
he was in the prison for 42 days.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently the Rittenband discussed this with the press. I know that he discussed it with Bill Farr, who was a reporter for the Los Angeles Times, and he got to understand that the press was going to criticize him for a soft sentence. And so he decided and told the lawyers the night before the sentencing that he was going to sentence Polanski to an indeterminate sentence, which would have allowed him to keep Polanski in jail for up to 50 years.
Yes.
He would still be in jail today because it's only 35 years.
Yes.
And this leads. There was a movie that was done called Polanski One of the Desired, and this happens to be one of the most poignant parts of the movie, I think. And then Rittenband said, I will sentence him to an indeterminate sentence. And then a couple weeks later, after the focus cuts down or comes down, come back to me and I'll let him out. But of course, that depended upon whether Rittenband would do such a thing, and you had to sort of trust the judge.
Mm-hmm.
And Dalton, Polanski's lawyer, said the gun's in the prosecutor. Should I trust him?
Right.
And the prosecutor said, well, you did before. I don't see why you wouldn't do it again.
Mm-hmm.
The sarcasm of that is, you trusted him to sentence him to probation.
Yes, and look what happened.
And he sentenced him to 90 days, although he only served 42.
Yes.
So within hours, Polanski was on an airplane and remained a fugitive from justice.
Yes. Well, in the book, Samantha describes that when she heard that Polanski had fled the country, that her reaction was freedom.
Right.
No more telling my story. No more seeing myself called sex victim girl in the paper. So
that's true, and she was thrilled that she would have been thrilled at the time with anything which would have resulted in it being over, either temporarily or permanently. Mm-hmm. And his departure from the United States basically meant that the case wasn't going to go on, and her involvement in the case was going to be zero, and with no case, her involvement was nothing. So, she was thrilled, only to have spent a lifetime dealing with the publicity and the press focus when whenever anything happened involving Polanski and that came to the press.
Yes, and that's kind of why you were hired, to keep her anonymity, so that she wouldn't have to testify, so she wouldn't have to reveal all of her story. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, that's what I tried to do for years and years and years, until she decided just to come out, so to speak, and write this book.
Yes. So, how did this shift come from wanting, to just have her privacy, have her private life, and then all of a sudden she's a full-blown public persona?
Yeah. Well, that's an excellent question. And I think what happened is when Polanski was arrested in Switzerland in 2009, her anonymity was pretty much compromised by that time. Mm-hmm. In addition, one of the reasons that she had done this and wanted this was because of an effort to live a normal life, which she substantially has. She's been married. She's had 3 sons.
Yes.
And she really never wanted to have her sons, especially when they were in school, have the details of these events be real public. She was concerned that they might be taunted at school.
Of course.
Children can be very mean.
Yes.
But after this occurred in 2009, her sons are grown. They're in their 20s, and they said, Mom, we know everything. There's no reason to protect us anymore. There have been so many falsehoods and lies told about you and the events. Why don't you write a book? And with their encouragement, she decided to do it.
Oh, that's very good. So this happened in 1977. He fled the country in 1978, and of course she's been dealing with all the publicity, all the notoriety ever since then. In her book, she does describe that in 1988 she decided to file civil suit against him.
That is correct.
Yes.
And we had some great concerns about filing the suit. I'll tell you why she wanted to file it in a moment. But and so, because once you file a civil suit, you're like appearing in court for the cross-examination. Who you are is going to become public.
Yes.
But I was able to, and she details it in the book somewhat humorously, I think, how and what I did to keep the civil suit basically out of the public eye, which I was able to do for years and years.
Which was very clever. So simple and so clever.
Yes, I never realized that my inability to spell was wonderful. Anyway, I guess your listeners will have to read the book to find out what that was all about.
It's very exciting.
Polanski wrote an autobiography called Roman by Polanski, and in that autobiography, he devoted 2 full chapters to this incident. And for the most part, frankly, what he said is true, but there are a number of terrible statements that were not true. And Samantha was outraged, and she was outraged that he had said things which were not true. And one thing he said that there was a sexual tension between them.
Yes.
Only in his own mind.
Right.
And so that she was annoyed to an extreme that he was trying to profit from having been involved in this incident, and that she ought not profit. I think that though our lawsuit was in large part focused upon and arising out of the sexual assault and battery, that it was an effort to take away from him the money that he was making as a result of the book. In any event, that was her motivation in bringing the suit, and as I said, we were able to keep it private, even though it was a public lawsuit. We were able to keep it private for close to, I think, 20 years.
Yes. Then you had an experience with him when you went to Paris in order to depose him.
Right.
That you ran into him during the lunch break, and he called you over to his table, and he said something very surprising. I found it very surprising that he would say something. He said, "If you had seen her naked, she was so beautiful, you would have wanted to have sex with her too." He didn't use that word. He used another word.
Other words, but yes, that's what he said.
And what was your reaction at the moment?
Well, I did react, although that's not in the book, but I did react, and I said to him, well, there's a big difference between you and me. I didn't, and you did. Mm-hmm. And I'm not in trouble, and you are. And
he didn't even deny it later, I think.
No, he's never denied making this. He doesn't like to hear about that statement, but he's never denied making it.
And so at this point, would this be admissible in the case? Was it even relevant at the point, or it was just a horrible, rude comment that a man made?
Well, if the case were when people say things, this became sort of public, this statement, when I told the retired district attorney Roger Gunson about it, and he notified the district attorney of it in a statement. Obviously, if a defendant admits that he's done something or part of something, that is admissible in evidence. And so Polanski made this statement, and that would be, if it ever were to go to a trial, that would be admissible against him.
I see. And so eventually, it started in 1988, and about
77.
Excuse me?
I think, you said 88. I was just saying 77 is when the rape occurred.
Oh, no, but I meant the civil suit.
Oh, the civil suit, yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
And it about 5 years later, it was settled for a 6-figure amount, and he didn't pay up.
That's correct. He defaulted. And I had to reduce the settlement to a judgment, and as luck would have it, there was some assets that he had in the United States, and I was able to execute the judgment against those assets.
That's just, literally insult upon injury. He does this, and then he's not even meet his end of the requirement for the civil suit. So eventually you were able to work this out, and there were other terms of the agreement, right? Polanski was forbidden from ever discussing the events of that night. He was forbidden from ever speaking about Samantha or her family.
That is correct.
And on her part, she agreed to not commercially exploit the story and to assist in his efforts to resolve his legal issues with the U.S.
That is also correct.
Yes. So if those were the settlement, the agreements, then how was this book possible?
That's again an excellent question. Actually, I've been interviewed a number of times, and no one has ever asked me that question.
Oh, good.
So Samantha wrote to Polanski and told him that she wanted to write this book, and she said that she wanted him to agree to it, and he did.
Oh, well, that's good. I did see that he wrote to her after the release of Wanted and Desired in 2009, and he basically said that he was sorry for having affected her life throughout all these years.
Right.
And she says that her mother, in particular, felt some kind of relief after this note came to them.
Yeah, it's sort of an interesting thing. The note came out of the blue. No one, anticipated it, but he had seen apparently the movie Polanski Wanted and Desired a couple of times, and he wrote this note. It really didn't affect Samantha much, frankly, but somehow or another, when you say "I'm sorry," I suspect that's an apology.
Yes.
The apology really did give great relief to Samantha's mom, Susan, and her older sister, and for that, Samantha was grateful that Polanski had written the apology.
Yes. I read an article, I think it was in The Guardian, where she does mention, Samantha mentions that they have exchanged a couple of emails here and there. I assume that this communication had something to do with, getting him to agree to have her publish the story. She says it was nothing out of the ordinary, just very quick little notes.
Well, that is correct, and there was a lot of publicity that the two of them were in touch, but now you know substantially what they were in touch about. It was this email back and forth about writing this book, and that was what it was.
And so now he's still in France?
I don't keep track of it. He was in Switzerland for a while,
yes.
But and then I think he's also been in Poland, but for the most part in France.
Yes. And, well, Samantha writes about Hawaii, kind of going back and forth between, I think it's California and Hawaii. And, she writes about how after everything happened, she did have a few years where she was kind of out of control a little bit. But she never loses her sense of humor. There's a line in the book where she says, if there were drugs available, I'd do them, and if there were boys available, I'd do those too. But she writes about, eventually how her sons helped her, focus on the important things in life, and how she's a happy woman, happily married with her 3 boys. Does she now feel that there's understanding about everything that happened with the public in general, that they now see her as a person instead of just the random girl in the case?
Well, first of all, I do want to comment. Again, you've raised an issue that no one has raised before, and that is I myself learned a great deal of things about Samantha that I hadn't known before when I read the book, even though I've been her lawyer for 36 years. And the first part of your comment, just preceding this, was one of them. But to answer your question, I think that the book and the accompanying activities, such as this interview and others, have persuaded people that she's a real person, that this is not an object, etc., and that she is a person with a family and feelings. And,
yes.
I think, frankly, that writing the book and the consequence of having the book has been a substantial benefit for her psyche, and the title of the book is "The Girl, A Life Lived in the Shadow of Roman Polanski," and I think that the writing of the book has made her effort to come out of that shadow have some reality.
Well, the best to her, the best to you. We're out of time, so unfortunately we have to stop. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. It was an honor and a privilege to be here, and I thought the questions were impressive.
Well, thank you very much. So the man is Larry Silver. The book is The Girl, A Life in the Shadow of Roman Polanski, a true inside story, a truly unique perspective of the woman behind decades of headlines. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Many people wonder how it's possible that Samantha Geimer is working towards helping Polanski clear his name in American courts. This is what she writes. For me, the consequences of the rape laws being vigorously pursued against Polanski would have meant I would be exposed to aggressive, damaging, and adversarial examination by Polanski's lawyers, who would make the case that it either never happened or that I was some trampy 13-year-old temptress, and so it wasn't that big a deal. My case would be tried not only in the court, but also in the media. All the stories about me would be salivated over again. Polanski made a horrible mistake and compounded it by fleeing the country. On the other hand, he has been publicly exposed as a rapist, his career has been damaged, and he has lived as an exile from the United States, the center of the movie universe. Enough punishment? There's a disagreement on the answer to that, but to me it's the wrong question. I'm not interested in punishment. I'm interested in justice. And justice, I believe, starts with the interests of the victims. Thank you to Larry Silver once again for joining us. I'm Lupita Strong for Good Books Radio.